may be seated. This summer, I have gotten to be around a lot of kinds of water, a lot of bodies of water. And in my mind, that makes it a successful summer. One of the things I love about living in Michigan is that you have access to water pretty much anytime you want to. Some of you even live on lakes or have houses on lakes. We have a lake even a short walk down from our house in Plymouth in the Old Village. This summer, I spent time in the French Broad River, and when I say in the French Broad River, I mean there is a place by the place where I was camping where you can actually sit in the French Broad River. It's that shallow, and it's really a beautiful place to sit and look at the rocks and the trees. It's in Hot Springs, North Carolina. I also got to sit in the hot springs twice. That was really cool too. Just recently, we went to Niagara Falls for another body of water. Niagara Falls is, if you guys have been there, it's only 4 hours if you haven't. We got to take the boat, and it says that it is mist, but it is not mist. It is like heavy rain on you in the boat. And so that was another experience of kind of the power of water. And Lake Erie, most recently, which did a really great imitation of an ocean for us. Lake Erie this past week, that it had big waves and warnings that if you go in, there were heavy and dangerous currents. So for our kids who miss going to the beach, we were like, here it is, remember? It's just unsalted and shark-free. All of these bodies of water, they're healing, I think, which is why we kind of seek them out maybe in the summer. And sitting by them, or sitting in them in some cases, or getting drenched by them in other cases, despite the 3 different colors of ponchos that we got to wear during our visit to Niagara Falls, you start thinking about big questions, like, how did this get here? And why are we here? And what are we here to do? This water has been running a long time, and it's done amazing things in thousands of years to the landscape. What am I doing here? What can I do that'll make a difference? For some reason, sitting by water, I think, does that for me, and maybe it does that for you too. I wondered when I was reading the story of Esther, I wonder if she went to the Tigris or Euphrates River and sat by them. They would have been pretty close to where she lived in Babylon, and I wonder if she went to the water and sat and thought about, what am I doing here? What am I supposed to do? She had just heard that maybe she was called, maybe she became queen for such a time as this, right? She had just heard that, and I wonder, because the rivers were such a presence in Babylon, I wonder if she went to the river to sit and to pray. I think part of the wisdom that we can learn from Esther is that she had this interesting rhythm of doing things that I think we can learn from and that I've learned from. Esther shows us both contemplation and action. If you're familiar at all with the writings of Richard Rohr, he's a Catholic priest and mystic. They try to disown him, but he makes a lot of money for the Catholic Church, so they let him stay around even though he's kind of a heretic. But his writing is really beautiful, and his center in New Mexico is called the Center for Action and Contemplation. Contemplation and action. This is what we see in the story of Esther. We see Esther go into this contemplation mode. That was in chapter 4, where she's really thinking deeply about why she's there and what she has to do, and maybe how high the stakes are for her to approach the king in this way. she's really contemplating and really thinking about it and taking a moment. And in the VeggieTales version, which I know you guys think we're crazy, but if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's really good. The story of Esther, it's on YouTube. They show Esther in contemplation, and she sings a song about how God is, she doesn't have to be afraid because God is on her side. That's her moment of contemplation when she figures out what she's going to do. And she figures out that even if it means death for her, she has to do this for her people. She takes the time to sit and think and plan carefully. In the Lutheran Church, I think we spend a lot of time in contemplation. We like to talk and debate and nail theses to doors and discuss and make sure that we have everything completely right. The action part, we're not always so great on. Our church this past week voted to become a denomination where we offer sanctuary. That's action after a lot of contemplation, lots of years, lots of discussion. Here's the thing, we don't know what that actually means. Probably some more contemplation. But the rhythm between contemplation and action is one that is so important for our life of faith. After Esther had her moment of contemplation, of doing that hard work, of figuring out what she needed to do and what she needed to hold on to, she did something that took great courage. In the palace, which there are ruins of it that still exist, she would have had to go up this huge set of stairs to get to the palace, because the harem, of course, was on a totally other part of the grounds, and Esther would have lived in the harem with the other wives and all the kids. So Esther would have had to go up the stairs, these big stairs with carvings of the king on them. Other kings, this king really was in love with himself. Other kings had carvings of gods in their palaces, right? They might have not been the God that we're familiar with, but they had carvings of gods because they said, my power is attributed to this God and all that stuff. Not this king. This king had carvings of himself everywhere. As you approached the palace, you saw carvings of the king followed by servants, and the king was like twice as tall as the servants in the carvings to show just how important he was. So imagine you're Esther. You have had your moment of contemplation. You've gathered all your courage. And then it's time to get glamorous. Esther, it says, put on the royal robes. She had on her royal crown. She was dressed like for a pageant. In one of the depictions, she has a train that's going behind her as she walks up the stairs. She looks beautiful. In legend, she has flowing, long black hair. She goes up the stairs. She's not even to the king's throne room yet. She goes up some more stairs because this king really loves himself, as we're saying. And she goes into the outer court. Then she goes into the inner court. She's not even in the king's room yet. That's a separate throne room, again. She's in the inner court. People have been executed for going into the inner court without permission. But here's Esther. She has gotten her glam squad to put her together. She looks amazing. And the king is like, that woman, that's my queen. What do you want? And because she has taken that moment of contemplation, she doesn't get all anxious and say, I need you to free the Jewish people and let my adopted father Mordecai off the hook. She speaks to the king in the language that he understands, which is beauty, and she says, I want to throw you a giant party, because that's this king's language too. His language was banquets. His language was beautiful women, and his language was wine. So she serves him a lot of wine, and 24 hours of wine later, he says, anything, I'll give you anything you want up to half my kingdom. And she says, because she has contemplated, how about I throw you another party all day tomorrow? And the king says, all right. And Haman goes out, and Haman's very pleased with himself because he is also so very important. As you saw, he's also the worst. The Jewish people, when they read this story of Esther on Purim, they are supposed to boo and make a whole bunch of noise when Haman's name is even mentioned, because he's the worst. Esther has gotten all of her courage together. She has contemplated and she has acted in this courageous way. She has spoken to the king in the language that he understands, and she has gotten him in a place where he is way more than receptive for anything that she wants to ask him. We have this terrible guy, Haman, who is plotting really terrible stuff. No spoilers, but Haman gets his. And to find out how, you have to come back next week.